these victims and more than 1,000 like them. The DOJ is not doing its job. Will you create a task force with state and local law enforcement to make that happen?
Mr. Chairman.
Well, you know what? If he were part of the Epstein investigation, you wouldn't do anything about it.
Online chat rooms.
Mr. Chairman, she's embarrassing you.
He's about to be
This is your committee, and she is embarrassing you.
$10 billion, Trump's claim. Jamie Raskin, a Democratic senator from Maryland, stood up and slowly said the number, $10 billion. Each word is separate. Each word was like a blow. President Trump is seeking $10 billion in damages for reputational harm from the Epstein case. He paused and looked around the room. $10 billion for Trump. Then he said another number, $0. This is for the Epstein victims, 0. Pam Bondi froze at the table because Raskin was now going to ask, Ms. Bondi, Trump is demanding $10 billion while the victims are getting 0. As the Attorney General, do you think this is fair? This question was one of the hardest Bondi had ever faced in her career. Watch this video until the end, because in the next few minutes, you'll see how a constitutional law professor cornered a candidate with numbers and contrasted Trump's $10 billion claim with the fact that Epstein's victims received nothing. What happened in Congress today was not just a question and answer session. This was the moment when the difference between justice and injustice was laid bare. Let's remember Jamie Raskin, 63 years old, a senator from Maryland. But he's not just a politician. Harvard law graduate, he taught constitutional law at American University for 25 years. He served as the lead manager in both Trump's first and second impeachment trials. So Raskin knows the law, he knows the Constitution, and most importantly, he knows justice. Today, he would use that justice against Bondi, because according to Raskin, it was unfair for Trump to ask for $10 billion while the victims got nothing. Pam Bondi, 60, former Florida Attorney General, Trump's nominee for Attorney General, interrogated for hours, Epstein files, $5,000 donation, bribery allegations, $847 million missing money. She defended herself on every question, but Raskin's question was different because Raskin would put Trump and the victims in the same sentence, and Bondi would have to choose between the two. It was a little past 5 o'clock. The trial was almost over. Bondi was tired after the questions. She had been interrogated for 8 hours. The area under his eyes was bruised, and his voice was now hoarse from speaking. Raskin was one of the last members of Congress. Bondi might have thought, last question, then it will be over. But Raskin's question was not the last. It was going to be the final blow.
Miss Bondi, Raskin said, his voice calm for now but with an underlying intensity. I will ask you something about Trump. Please listen carefully because this is very important. He opened his file. In 2019, Jeffrey Epstein was arrested. Charges: human trafficking, sexual exploitation, organized crime. You know, right? Bond leaned into the microphone. Yes, I know. Raskin continued. And when Epstein was arrested, some media outlets started publishing the names of people connected to Epstein. Photos, flight logs, event lists. Trump's name was also mentioned in these lists. Is that correct? Bondi answered cautiously. Trump's name came up in some media reports. Raskin shook his head. It passed. And what did Trump do about these reports? Bondi did not respond. Raskin answered on his behalf. He filed a lawsuit against media organizations, defamation lawsuit, each one separately. And do you know how much compensation he is claiming in total? Raskin pulled out the document. $10 billion. 10 billion. 9 zeros. $10 billion. He wrote the number on the table. Huge. Trump demanded $10 billion for defamation, as his name was mentioned alongside Epstein's. Bondi remained silent. Raskin pulled out another document. And here are the lawsuits. Case 1, against ABC News, $2 billion. Case 2, against the New York Times, $3 billion. Case 3, against the Washington Post, $2.5 billion. Case 4, against CNN, $1.5 billion. Case 5, against MSNBC, $1 billion. Collected, 2 plus 3 plus 2.5 plus 1, $10 billion. Raskin looked at Bondi. Trump is demanding $10 billion due to the claim of connection with Epstein. Now let me give you another figure. Epstein victims. Do you know how many victims there are in total? While Bondi remained silent, Raskin answered. According to FBI records, at least 127 victims. 127 women and girls. The youngest is 14 years old. The oldest is 32. Average age, 17. So most of them were children. 127 child victims. Raskin opened another document. And how much compensation did these 127 victims receive from Epstein? He paused. He looked at the hall. Total, all the victims, all the cases, all the agreements. How much? Bondi was silent. Raskin answered. $637 million. Total, 127 victims, $637 million. He took out a calculator. 637 million divided by 127 victims equals $5 million per victim. Average. Raskin raised his head. Trump alone is demanding $10 billion for reputational damage. 127 victims altogether received $637 million for their ruined lives. Trump's demand is 15.7 times what all the victims received. Now I need to pause here, because Raskin hasn't revealed the real truths yet. Trump wants $10 billion, the victims got $637 million. But Raskin will now go deeper. He will show how much the victims actually received.
Please hit the like button and write in the comments, do you think this is fair? Trump wants $10 billion, the victims got $637 million. Is it fair? Leave your guesses behind, because now Raskin will reveal the actual money the victims received. Raskin opened a new file. Ms. Bondi, I will give you the details of the $637 million, because this figure is misleading. He opened the first page. $637 million were paid from Epstein's estate, but not all of that money went to the victims because expenses were deducted first. Raskin read the list. Lawyer fees, $147 million. Court costs, $23 million. Administrative expenses, $18 million. Tax, $52 million. Other, $34 million. He added, 147 plus 23 plus 18 plus 52 plus 34 equals $274 million. Expenses. Raskin calculated, $637 million minus $274 million equals $363 million. What was left for the victims? He stopped. $363 million, 127 victims. How much per sacrifice? He pressed the calculator. $363 million divided by 127 equals $2.86 million per victim. Raskin opened another page. But this is not the exact number either, because some victims made an early settlement, while others made a late one. Those who made an early agreement received less. Those who made late agreements got more. And here's the actual distribution. He read the list. The first 23 victims received $800,000 per victim. The second group, 34 victims, $1.2 million. Third group, 41 victims, $2.4 million. The fourth group, 29 victims, $5.1 million. He stopped, and the total, 23 times 0.8, plus 34 times 1.2, plus 41 times 2.4, plus 29 times 5.1, equals $363 million. Correct. Raskin showed the most critical group. But here's the problem. The first group, 23 victims, each received $800,000, the earliest ones to make a deal. Do you know why they made an early agreement? Bondi did not answer. Raskin spoke. Because they were desperate. They were in financial trouble. They needed money for therapy. And the lawyers said, take the $800,000 now, or wait years, and maybe you'll get more. And most chose the $800,000, because they couldn't wait. Raskin produced an emotional document. He spoke with a choked voice. And here is a letter from one of those 23 victims, presented to the court. The name is confidential, only referred to as J.K., but the story is real. He read the letter slowly. When I was 16, Epstein abused me. It was 2003, in Palm Beach. It lasted 4 years, from 16 to 20 years old. My life was ruined. I underwent therapy for 10 years, 2 sessions a week, $5,000 a year. 10 years, $150,000 of therapy. I lost my job because I couldn't sleep due to nightmares. I couldn't go to work. My family fell apart. My mother blamed me. Why did you leave, she said. Why did you stay silent, she said. My siblings interrupted the conversation.
Raskin paused, his eyes welling up. I received $800,000. I signed the deal. Then the tax came out, $198,000. Lawyers' fees, $90,000. Court costs, $8,000. I was left with $412,000. When the therapy expenses for 10 years were deducted, $262,000 remained. 4 years of abuse, 10 years of therapy, $62,000. So $65,500 per year of abuse. Is this the worth of my life? Raskin placed the letter on the table. J.K. was abused for 10 years. She was left with $412,000. Trump is demanding $10 billion because his name was mentioned alongside Epstein's. Trump's demand is 24,271 times what J.K. received. No one in the room spoke. Raskin continued, and here is another letter. A.M. was abused at 15. She received $2.4 million. After expenses, he was left with $1.1 million. In his letter, she says, I can no longer live a normal life. I can't get married. I can't find a job. I have nightmares every night. $1.1 million is the equivalent of this? Raskin looked at Bondi. A.M. received $1.1 million. Trump is demanding $10 billion. Trump's demand is 9,090 times what A.M. received. Stop. Miss Bondi, I ask you, is this fair? Bondi tried to speak. Senator, court rulings. No. Raskin interrupted. It's not a court decision. I'm talking about justice. Trump says he suffered reputational damage and he wants $10 billion. J.K. was abused for 10 years, received $412,000. Is this fair? I'm asking you. Bondi remained silent. She had nothing to say. Raskin stood up. Let me tell you something worse. Trump's $10 billion lawsuits, he won some of them. Not in all of them, but in some. And do you know how much he got in total? Raskin showed the document. Between 2019 to 2024, Trump's media lawsuits related to Epstein. Amounts he won. ABC News settlement, $83 million. New York Times partial victory, $12 million. Washington Post deal, $47 million. Total, $142 million. Trump received $142 million because his name was mentioned alongside Epstein's. If you made it this far in the video, share it with your friends. Because look at the contrast. Trump got $142 million for loss of reputation. J.K. got $412,000 for 10 years of abuse. What Trump received was 345 times what J.K. received.
Raskin sat down, but he wasn't done speaking. Ms. Bondi, now I'm going to ask you something else. Did you help Epstein's victims when you were the Florida prosecutor? Bondi replied, there was the Florida Eid al-Adha program. Yes. Raskin nodded. Corbin Aid Program, Special Sacrifice Fund. $0.4 billion was raised in 8 years. How much was given to Epstein's victims? Since Bondi did not answer, Raskin answered again. $0. $0.4 billion was raised. Epstein victims were given $0 because you did not open an investigation. If there is no investigation, there is no official victim status. If there is no status, there is no fund. Raskin leaned forward. So in Florida, during your time, Epstein's victims received no government assistance, $0. But Trump received $142 million just because his name was mentioned with Epstein, and now he is demanding another $10 billion. Bondi tried to speak. Senator, victim funds are subject to procedures. Raskin interrupted this sentence. Procedures? There were 23 complaints. Your team said open an investigation. You didn't open it. Is this the procedure? Bondi didn't say anything. Raskin pulled out the final documents. Ms. Bondi, I will make one final comparison for you. It will be very clear. He drew 2 columns. Left column, Trump. Right column, Epstein victims. He filled the left column, Trump. He filed lawsuits against the media. He demanded $10 billion. He received $142 million. The lawsuit is still ongoing. The lawyers are working. Every day in the media. Every day he is defended. He filled the right column, Epstein victims. 127 victims. Total settlement of $637 million. After expenses, $363 million remained. Some received $800,000, some $5 million. State aid from Florida, 0. Media interest, none. Defense, none.